Is bodybuilding functional? This question has been debated by fitness influencers and gym goers alike for decades. You have one side that says, no, it's not functional because you have all this muscle mass, but you can't do anything with it. You're so muscular, but you have no fitness, right? You get exhausted going up a flight of stairs, and that you need to train differently. You need to train functionally in order to actually optimize your health and your muscular ability. They say you cannot just build muscle, because just building muscle it's like empty tissue to these people. And I want to challenge that idea and say that that is completely false, right? So I myself have been training exclusively to build muscle for 4 years now. And in these last 4 years, I've tried different approaches. I've tried high volume, high frequency, all the way down to low volume and low frequency. And what I found is that they didn't really change my results all that much, except low volume allowed me to push myself much harder than when I was training high volume and tired all the time. However, when it comes to functional fitness, we really need to define our terms, right? What does functional fitness mean? And I believe that most people will have different definitions for this term. So CrossFitters will say, well, it's kind of your ability to do pretty much anything. And really, I would agree with that, right? If you are fit, you should be capable of doing pretty much everything except for very niche, like skill-based things, right? Like a handstand push-up or walking on your hands, right? One-arm pull-up. Like, these are not realistic expectations for training your muscles and being functional. Those are kind of skills that are far above and beyond just having muscle mass. However, the idea that muscle mass does not help these skills is also false, because I myself, about 6 years ago, I was able to do a one-arm pull-up, just one rep. Now, after training just for muscle growth, especially in these last year or two, I can now do 2 one-arm pull-ups without even training specifically the one-arm pull-up, right? So what I've found is, wow, increasing my muscle mass increased my functional ability. Wow. And this argument would also be really hard to convince somebody who's out of shape, right? This debate only happens amongst people who are already fit. If you were to tell your 80-year-old grandma that her gaining muscle mass would be not functional, bro, and she needs to go do some other form of training to make sure it's functional, that's laughable. Obviously, older people who are out of shape, gain functional fitness by gaining muscle mass. There's kind of this fear out there that you're going to gain so much muscle that your body's not going to know what to do with it, and you're going to be exhausted going upstairs because, well, it's just dead weight. And that is not true at all. It depends how you train, obviously. If you train just doing like high volume and you don't put a lot of effort into it, then yeah, maybe you could end up growing some muscle but not really have much fitness or cardiovascular fitness behind it. However, if you train hard, very intensely, vigorously, there's no way your cardiovascular system will not improve. Now, this kind of takes me down a rabbit hole of, what is cardio and how are you measuring that, right? Because if you think your 5K time is going to improve because you built muscle mass, no. I mean, it's possible, but it's not a direct correlation, and you would never be in the gym lifting weights solely for the purpose of my 5K time is going to improve, right? Because running is a specific skill, and you have to train that skill to get better at that, right? You're not going to expect to ride a bike all summer and then do better at swimming, right? So it comes down to what is the term functional fitness and how do you measure it, right? And a lot of influencers and gurus on the internet make training plans toward functional fitness because it's a marketing scheme. It's a selling point, right? If you just are trying to sell somebody bodybuilding, there's nothing to sell there because everybody already knows what bodybuilding is, or they have ideas about bodybuilding, and it's already been labeled as non-functional. So the cool thing to do and the best way to get more business is to actually sell programs toward being more functional. It's kind of the opposite of bodybuilding, or it's seen as the opposite of bodybuilding. However, when you have more muscle mass, you can produce more force. This makes you more functional. If you're weak and you can only walk, say, a farmer's carry of 10-pound dumbbells, I myself am a firefighter, so if I was on the fire ground and all I could carry are 10-pound amount of objects with me, that would be really low functioning, because I need to be able to carry a 30-pound water can and close to 30 pounds worth of axe and Halligan when I get out of the truck. So I have to be able to carry more. Now, those are each 30s. If I can carry 60s, then 30 is going to feel easy, right? If I can carry 90s, 30 is going to feel even easier. So my point here is, as you get stronger, your functional ability improves naturally without even training it directly, right? If you build muscle across your entire body, you are now able to pull more weight and produce more force. You are now able to push more weight and more force. You can deadlift more weight and more force. Obviously, deadlifting is a skill as well, like you need to train that, but you get my point. You're able to produce more force, which makes you more functional. And if there's a certain skill or task that you need to train, or you're going to be tested on to determine your function, your functional ability, then you need to practice that, right? And to get the best results on that test. Or else people are going to say you're not very functional, right? So, thankfully in 2025, we don't hear a lot of people making this argument, but some people still do, right? So for me, I know for myself, you can't look at me and say, oh, bro, your lifting's not very functional. Because I can do muscle ups, I can do pull-ups, dips, I can do one-arm pull-ups. So it's obviously functional, right? It's obviously working. It's not like it's not working. It's not like I'm able to do less than what I used to do before. So I challenge the belief that building muscle is not functional. Now, a lot of people will also use very extreme examples of bodybuilders on tons of steroids and that weigh well over 200 pounds lean, 250 pounds lean. That is an extreme example. And that's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about here. Obviously, there are health implications that come with steroid use, or any PED usage for that matter, that are also underlying causes of their fitness maybe lacking, right? And they have an excess of tissue that maybe their body has not been able to build capillaries to go through all of that tissue to make them as efficient, maybe cardiovascularly, as they ought to be. However, for natural lifters and natural people, since your body was capable of putting on that muscle, it is therefore capable of using it and having a high functional ability. Your body's not going to put on tissue that it can't support. Now, obviously, body fat, your body's not trying to support body fat. So that would be a tissue that you don't need and you don't want, and that adds weight to your frame, but it does not add function to your frame. So you want muscle, but not body fat, right? Obviously, training and doing what most people would say is functional fitness, right? Like CrossFit type workouts, is it functional? I mean, I don't know. When's the time you're going to find yourself doing kipping handstand push-up against a wall in real life? You're never going to find that, right? So there's obviously movements that aren't functional for anyone because you're never going to need to do that. But if you have muscular strength, if you train in the gym with weights very intensely, you can push yourself up, right? You can pull yourself up on a bar or do dips or push-ups, right? Obviously, you have to have a realistic body fat percentage. You can't be, 25, 30+% body fat and expect to perform as if you're lean, right? So I've personally found getting leaner has helped me a ton with being able to run. I practice running. It's a sport that I used to do, and I still like to do it. I like to be prepared to run if I needed to. It feels good. Obviously, I don't weigh that much right now, and it's a lot harder when I've weighed more in the past doing some intense bulking, right, that I hopefully won't really do again, but I still plan on, lean bulking, I guess you'd call it, but I'm not going to get as overweight as I was prior. However, I found that my cardiovascular fitness improved tremendously just by losing weight. It's a whole nother video really, but a lot of people think they need to do cardio to lose weight, when in reality, if you lose weight, your cardio improves as a byproduct without even having to try, right? So I can run 3 miles at 7:15 pace per mile, no problem right now. But when I was 190, running 1.5 miles at that pace was a hard effort. And that's with the same frequency of running being like once a week, maybe twice a week. So if you want to be more functional, have less body fat on your frame, more muscle mass. If you need more mobility, practice mobility, right? I don't specifically need mobility for much of anything. I'm quite mobile, but if you're not, then you need to practice that, right? So everything is going to come down to what you practice, what you define as functional. So to me, it doesn't matter if you use barbells, dumbbells, body weight, machines, cables, however you want to train the muscles of your body. However, I prefer and I recommend that you train them very intensely to muscle failure so you can stimulate the most muscle growth. You don't know if you're a hyper responder. You don't know if you're going to build a ton of muscle this year or if you're going to try really hard and build barely any at all. So you might as well go all in, push yourself hard, building muscle, and you will therefore build strength, and your cardiovascular system will also improve. We have research studies to support the idea that lifting weights improves cardiovascular functioning, especially in patients who have cardiovascular disease or any other disability. So there's really no reason not to be lifting weights. Push yourself hard. And thanks guys so much for watching. Hopefully you can now understand that functional fitness is really just a marketing term that Athlean-X and other people have pushed on you for decades, and now it's time for that to die and for you to understand that your body is what's functional. The muscles of your body are what produce force in any situation, and you don't have to practice something extremely specifically if you just want the general qualities of muscle size and strength and cardiovascular fitness, right? If you find yourself one day having to push a car to help somebody out of a situation, you don't need to practice pushing a car your whole life just in case you come across that one situation. Instead, you can train the muscles of your chest, shoulders, triceps, quads, calves, hamstrings, and you will have the ability to produce force in every situation without having to train very specifically for very niche movements and situations that you're never going to find yourself in, right? So your body's capable of more than you think. Your body is the functional machine, and muscles produce force, which will help you produce force in any skills that you might have. If you have a skill of being able to do a handstand, having more muscle and strength can help you be able to perform a handstand push-up, right? Even if you trained overhead press, tricep push down, stuff like that, it's still going to transfer eventually because of your ability to produce force is higher. So long as you practice that skill if you need more skill practice. Anyway, guys, that's been it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.